It is Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. Cheers, everybody. This is your Cup of Jones. Mr. Longtime watcher, first-time greeter, love and respect. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for saying hi, everybody. So yeah, this is Easy Allies. It's a Patreon. It's Tuesday morning. This is live, if you just happen to be catching this. It is 10 a.m. here in Southern California. And this is what we do on Cup of Jones, is we just have a brief little conversation. We just make sure to check in at least once a week. It is the holidays. A lot of people are gone on holiday break. I'm still around. I'm going to be here in Los Angeles all through the holidays with the in-laws. And we'll hopefully be doing some streaming. Not a lot of streaming going on at Easy Allies this week, but hopefully I have not streamed in a long time. Apologies. I haven't been doing a lot outside of, you know, our little hangouts here every Tuesday morning and our hangouts Tuesday night when all of the other allies come over. I don't know if I have 100% confirmation on the game tonight. It's bounced around between a couple things. Apologies, I did not double check before we started the stream tonight. I want to say it's Super Mario Strikers. I believe it's Super Mario Strikers. That's the last game that we were discussing. It is a tournament night, and so we will be tournamenting. I think there will only be 6 of us, though, 6 out of the 9. Amanda expressed some interest in hopping on the group stream tonight, so you can check that out at 6 p.m. But there's some stuff, some games I want to play, some stuff I want to catch up on, possibly over the holiday break, between the 25th of December and the 1st of the year. Immediately following, we will gather for not only the Game of the Year awards and pick those, and most likely stream our reactions to those as well. Not our reactions, but our deliberations. But also having a meeting just amongst the allies to talk about even more stuff that's brought up this week about you know, possible goals we can do past 50K for the office. Basically just planning out 2018 and what we want, putting up more details as soon as possible about the meetup for our 2-year, because I know a lot of people expressed people possibly might have already booked travel for the actual day. We're going to be doing something. We're going to do something live on that day, but it looks like because of GDC, we're going to have to roll the date back to the weekend prior. Looks like the what is currently in the lead for the March 21st meetup. So we will put more specific details on that as we lock a venue and figure out exactly what we want to do. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, when we last hung out here on Patreon, but also on YouTube, Patreon changed their policies. They announced that they were going to, and then they have since rolled back on that. So we are awaiting more information from Patreon as far as other changes that they want to do. We know that this is not just the one announcement that they made that was extremely unpopular, but what other possible changes they might do in the future to obviously correct some revenue issues that they're having. And so we shall see. That I don't believe that fight is over, but a lot of people, Patreons, you know, certainly voiced their opinions, but a lot of our wonderful patrons did as well. And so it was nice getting that message to Patreon, and hopefully we will have more of a ongoing dialogue that I can communicate with you when they make policy changes like that. So yeah, good news for now. Last week I got to check out Far Cry 5 and I did a preview of it. It ate up our PC a little bit because of it's in 4K, but it is finished, awaiting approval right now, and then we'll hopefully go up today. A little run through, about 10 minutes long, of me playing a bunch of Far Cry 5. We are currently at 44K on Patreon. A little above 44K, which I don't know if we're going to stay there going into the month of January, but I believe we broke 40K in December last year. I remember being in Florida with the in-laws and freaking out, like running around the kitchen, being like, yay, we hit 40K. Or it might have been 45, I can't remember. Like, we hit a big number. I think it was 40. I think we hit a big number last year. And so it's neat getting near the end of the holidays and having a real nice milestone met. Obviously we've been above 44K before, but we brought in some interesting sponsorship opportunities. We're working on Box Peak and wanted to get that published, and so there were a lot of things, a lot of immediate incentives, but this has just basically been natural Patreon growth, especially considering all of the issues people have had with Patreon. Speaking of Patreon issues, we've noticed a bug where we've had a lot of people confused now that we've been putting up audio-only versions of Cup of Jones, because some people that check on mobile, some people that check on other devices only get certain posts, and sometimes they don't get others, and so sometimes they'll just see the audio-only post and won't see the original ones. Also want to double down that if you're listening to the audio, make sure to go back to the original post if you want to drop questions. because I just don't want repeated questions. I don't want people not seeing the questions from one post. So I always only get the questions from this initial Tuesday morning live posting of Cup of Jones. And yeah, that is it for our intros. We got some feedback. I wanted to do a editorial this week, possibly on traffic, possibly on fun Christmas presents that you can get people. I don't necessarily have anything prepared. I was up late last night working on Far Cry and some other stuff, some Christmas presents. So no specific editorial today other than you are all great. I talked about driving safety last week. I should also mention this. Talking about driving safety a little bit last week. Got some nice comments on Patreon. Also got the immediate law check from Hoglaw, who said, see, this is the police are coming for me now. Hoglaw mentioned that while I said you cannot drive bicycles on the sidewalk, apparently you can't. Apparently that is legal in California, at least legal in Los Angeles, to ride around your bike wherever the heck you want. But if you do that, I encourage you, please bike safely. Don't clobber some 6-year-old girl coming out of a toy shop. Professor Metal Gear asks, is there any particular video game related tradition you have during the holiday season? Or do you rather prefer to use the holiday season to take a break from games? I never want to take a break from games. The only time I'm going to take a break from video games is when I'm like traveling. And a lot of those times I'm playing mobile games while I'm gone. But that's how I break from games, is I go camping, or I physically like cannot get near a game. But if I'm home and if it's vacation, I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of games. Hopefully we will be starting a new tradition this year of playing Game of the Year contenders over the holidays so that we can gather in the following year and have more educated decisions about what our goaties are. And we definitely have some games that are bubbling up. Some people are already on break. Bloodworth's on break, Ian's on break, and they already dropped some games in Slack that they were like, hey, I had time to power through this game in one evening. I suggest you all do the same. But yeah, with gaming, I definitely remember birthdays and holidays being gaming events around consoles. I remember actually kind of being sad when that changed, when I realized, like, oh, I'm old enough, I should probably just buy myself an Xbox 360. Like, that's not the kind of situation anymore where I can be like, Mom, I want an Xbox 360 for Christmas. I'm like, oh, I'm in college, I should probably just buy one. So that was a bummer. I remember... It's interesting. It's really fun tying those big games to big holidays and big presents, but not necessarily anymore. Presents for me, because it's weird when I'm in a marriage now with Amanda to surprise her with big stuff, because we both manage our budget, and so if she sees me spending a couple $100 on something random, she's like, "What? Oh, that's a gift." And Amanda's really good. This is something that actually really bothers me. This is one of her strange mutant abilities. She's really good at guessing presents. A lot of times I've told her, like, ooh, I got a present for you online. It'll, look for it in the mail and, make sure not to open it because it's addressed to me. And she's like, oh, it's that thing I asked for, isn't it? And like, I tried. Candy Coated Thorns, your favorite president? No one asked what my favorite president was other than Candy Coated Thorns. I don't know if she saw that, but somebody asked what I wanted to be asked last week. And I said, I want people to know what my favorite president is. Or actually, no. I don't necessarily care if they know what my favorite president is, but I want to be asked that. My favorite president is probably Lincoln. I sympathize with Lincoln just because that's a hard year. That's a hard couple years to be president of the United States. Also, Walt Disney was a giant Lincoln fan. I have seen a robot Lincoln perform. And once you see robot Lincoln, there's really no going back with other presidents. But... Brandon K. Gann, I'm not sure if this is the last Cup of Jones for the year. It's not. Is there a date? I don't know if I'll do Cup of Jones on Tuesday. I'm not going to make a 100% promise. There might not be a Cup of Jones next week. I might take that off. It's been fun to do this weekly, and I'll be around. I'm sure I won't be up to anything super important next Tuesday morning, but I will update you. If I don't do it, I'll give you a lead that I'm not going to do it, but I can't think off the top of my head for any reason I wouldn't. Is there a date that has been decided when the regular flow of things returns in terms of content rollout? This is your big week of absent shows and streams and stuff. I know there's not a lot of streams going on this week. I know some of us have prepared episodes of stuff that we're doing ahead of time, so that even if people are out of town, you can still get stuff. I know we've done a Fiasco Knots. I know you will not skip an easy update for this month, but a couple shows might go dark. A couple streams might. A couple people might not stream for a while. I think it's the first Tuesday of the new year is basically like when everybody knows they're going to be back for that group stream. Yeah, week and a half, almost 2 weeks. Andrew left. Do you have a favorite holiday special? As always, check easyallies.com for schedules in your own time zone. Do you have a favorite holiday special episode from a TV show you used to watch? I mean, the greatest holiday special of all time is the Star Wars holiday special. And can you share why this episode of your favorite or one of your favorites? Well, there's the, if you watch the Batman the Animated Series, if you get it on DVD, for some reason, even though it's not the first episode at all that aired, but the first episode is Christmas with the Joker, where he jumps on a Christmas tree and rockets out of Arkham. So obviously, you know, the animated series is my favorite TV show, and so the holiday specials of that were always fun. I'm trying to think about a holiday episode. I guess it's not a holiday episode of a TV show, but The Muppets was a TV show, and I just recently rewatched Muppet Christmas Carol, and that was pretty great. That definitely holds up. Fozziwig has got to be one of the best Muppet jokes, parodying any sort of work of fiction, whether it's Treasure Island or any of the other more recent stuff that they've done. Muppets in Space, as you know, based on popular fiction. But I saw a really great quote from Michael Caine, where whenever someone asks him if he has sung before in his career, doesn't ask him about the Muppets, but only asks him if he has sung, he says yes. And they say, oh really, you were in a musical? And he says, yes, I was in a musical film. And they say, who did you sing with? He says, Kermit the Frog. And people have to think, wait, what? Kevin, have you considered reaching out to the devs of games and letting them know that you've talked about their game and giving them a timestamp in hopes that they tweet about the coverage, thus giving EZA more exposure? Just a thought. Don't know if it's weird or not. Wanted to bring this up because it did get commented on. It got replied on from Daniel Bloodworth, who was lovely enough to go through the Cup of Jones comments and reply to people when applicable. And Bloodworth answered in the affirmative. We do that a lot. We do that. I do that a couple times because I have people that I'm direct contact with, some people at Rockstar and some people that I just have gotten to know over the years. And so I will reach out to them once we've done something. But yeah, that is always prudent. That's always the best thing to do. Of course, just be like, hey, you know, they reach out to us. Hey, do you want to come do this thing? Do you want a review code to review the game, or do you want to come to this event? Yes, we do. Go to the event. They email afterward, thanks for coming. We reply, thanks for having us. Make the video. Hey, by the way, here's our video. Check it out. That's why, yeah, it's always a huge win if, I think, Shuhei retweeted Last Guardian winning Game of the Year last year. And so it's nice to have people reach out and say, thank you for saying something nice. They don't always reach out when we don't say stuff nice, but Ibrahim Sozer, is there a reason that you don't have any goals after the studio? So goals on Patreon, 50K. EZA is slowly reaching that goal, and there's nothing beyond the studio. So I think the big difference is it's not that we don't have ideas, it's that we're not sure yet, past the studio or for 2018, how we're going to split up those ideas. So there's basically two lists. There's, this is a goal, this is a tier of something that we know we want to do, but we're not going to do it until we financially hit that point. The hard part of putting off stuff like that so far is that we want to do them. We will have a fun, creative idea, and our community will get really excited about it, and we want to do it, and then it's just always kind of sitting there. Trailer Jones was something easy for me because it was a personal responsibility, just adding more time onto my workload, and so I'm happy to do it and very happy not to do it at the same time because it means I can focus on other stuff. But I don't know if someone was in charge of, you know, hosting a podcast or host of Hubert was hosting a game show, and that game show was just always sitting there at the 55K level and just driving Hubert crazy because it's like, I really want to work on this and I can't because we're not there financially. So we have to put a divide between stuff that we want to do regardless, excuse me, and stuff we want to do, stuff we can wait to do until we get there financially. Until we can justify, no, that is actually being specifically, and maybe make that more representative so you can see it's not just like 5K beyond 50K is an arbitrary goal. It's like, no, that was clearly an expensive show. I can see where they put resources into it. You know, now that they got the studio, we have even more opportunities. We have even more, you know, a better venue to do different kinds of stuff. So hopefully the goals would reflect that. Daniel Rona, 3-part question about reviews. So those should hopefully be coming soon, sometime in 2018, to specifically answer your question. Before I take a sip of water. LP Land of Fazul, excited about the studio? We'll miss the garage. Me too. I don't commute. It's pretty sweet. 3-part question about reviews. How locked in are the Easy Allies to doing reviews? pretty locked in. Second, I would love to see the Allies try and broaden their scoring system. 2.5 stars should really be considered the average, not inferior, but I see so many games getting 3 or 3.5, which really should be considered good, even when the review is almost nothing truly positive to say about it other than, well, at least the game functions as intended. Thirdly, do you feel obligated to have some sort of critical coverage about the latest games? A neat idea would be having a critical roundtable at the end of each week, fortnight, month, where those who would be doing the reviews cover the games that came out in that time and have a prepared statement followed by question answers from the rest of the Allies, and maybe haven't played the game, or at least not played as much, and using that discussion to evaluate the overall feelings felt about the game and where it falls on that 5-point scale. So a couple things to talk about. One that I'll say briefly is I've definitely been thinking a lot about stuff we could do like Don't Skip. You know, small bite-sized updates on stuff that we either might not be getting to timely enough or that we might not get to at all. And so, you know, when we meet for Frame Trap, you might get those opinions of one person having played a game and the other people learning about it from that person, or, you know, describing their experience. You obviously have our reviews, we do streams as well. But I think beyond that, we need something from that's not just the live reactions of you seeing something or the review and not really having something in between, and not even something like a Don't Skip where, you know, we've really formulated an official opinion and are only doing this video because it is positive. We're not gonna tell you to don't skip a game that's not good, but to do just an update on something that and I don't know what those would be called. I don't know what format those would take. That's something I have to chat with the Allies about. So I prefer that rather than doing a big roundtable huge thing, because we do a lot of long distance content, a lot of stuff that goes on for a couple hours. I think it would be nice to have short stuff, one per game, that you could check out. It would be a little update from us. 2.5 stars shouldn't be considered the average because think about it, if you, and this is just me, I'm never going to say something about our scoring system that is indicative of all of the Allies as a whole. This is just my personal opinion. If you have a barometer of anything being good or bad, what's the distance of the camera? There we go. Where it's just like the absolute worst thing and the absolute best thing. Right in the middle is not like being totally neutral, being just kind of like, you know, like I'm not angry at this game, but I'm not excited at all. You know, it's just the game's just kind of there. Like, I don't recommend that game. I don't want you to play that. There's so many games, there's so many experiences that you should check out. And so I think when you see even your 3s and your 3.5s, I think because we don't get a chance to review every single game that comes out every year, a lot of us are gonna want to review things that are probably gonna wind up there, that are probably gonna be from developers that are competitive enough to at least put a good foot forward. You're like, it just seems like every game is like, well, at least it functions as intended, because it's made by somebody that knows what they're doing and maybe just didn't have enough money, or you know, lost some kind of creative vision, or something about the game, the controls, the pace of it just might not cater to a particular type of gamer that we recognize because we either represent ourselves as that gamer, or we can imagine, you know, who would be interested in that game. And so that's always the question that I answer, where people were like, your reviews tend to angle kind of high, and so what's the point if you're just going to give stuff good scores? It's like, it's just because, well, first of all, 2017 was amazing anyway, but those are the type of games that we gravitate towards, and so that's the type of stuff. Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably going to get a good score. You know what I mean? It's probably going to be a 6 or above. I would imagine. I don't know. We'll see. But so what is unfortunate, and what we don't have time to do, and what I think would make people feel a lot better about the review scale, is if we reviewed a lot of weird handheld games. If we reviewed a couple games on Switch that were not great, you know, if we, back in the Wii U days, if we went into, you know, some of those user games or some of that kind of shoddy independent stuff, then you would see, there's a 1. Okay, all right, that's a 1, got it. But we don't have time to play games like that. We don't think that type of content is going to grow our channel necessarily in any profound way, and games like that make us sad. And so maybe every now and then we'll do that. Maybe if we, you know, 20 years from now have 500 interns. Mr. M, why aren't you uploading the reviews that you guys do directly to Facebook and or Twitter as well as YouTube, instead of just sharing those sites? Numbers. we want the reviews that we do are one of our best opportunities to get really those precious 6, possibly 7 digits on YouTube. I think the fact that those videos would then start playing automatically without sound would grab a lot more people scrolling through their usual feeds and greatly increase the chances of getting new viewers compared to posting the links like you currently do. What I will agree with Mr. M, though, is that we do need to start bite-sizing our video content and putting it up on social media so that people can at least get a little taste of it. When we have the podcast, we have Frame Trap, and we have some kind of hot take. I want to put that up. I'm going to mute my microphone while I blow my nose. It was loud, and it was really gross, but you got none of it. So, no, we're not going to put up the full reviews. I don't think we should. Maybe I can talk to the team about that. Maybe Bloodworth is going to have opinions about that. I hope Bloodworth is off today. I hope Bloodworth is not in chat. I hope Bloodworth is napping somewhere or sitting by a pool. Grande Andrade. Got it. I got to do it every time. Daniel Garza Andrade. When streaming a game that has multiple versions across the different platforms and people get into chat, they always ask what version is on. Should the person streaming put a watermark in there just so people realize or avoid the same question over and over? Good idea. We do mortises for some of the stuff that we do. I like to do mortises for my Telltale Batman stream that I need to get back to because part 3 just came out from season 2. But it would be nice maybe to put something in there and be like, hey, I'm playing, Batman the Telltale series on PlayStation 4, so you can check. People would still ask in chat because they wouldn't see it. And it would be nice if Twitch had a platform-specific label, so you could not only put what game you're playing, but put what console as well. Joe Ellis, does EZA have any Plan B options in their back pocket just in case Patreon starts to not work out as expected? Which is a sentiment that a lot of people shared when Patreon was expressing their issue this week. Not necessarily just because of this one charge that they were going to do to patrons, but if this was indicative of changes that Patreon's willing to make without feedback, from their fan base, then maybe it's time to look at other options. We still love Patreon. The ease of use with this site, the way that Patreon.com lets us focus less on business and more on our users, which is why this was such a big deal, is because it affected our users, because our fans, our patrons, our community is our currency. Like, you are all what is keeping this going. We have creative ideas, we put in creative work, we do stuff live, we do stuff recorded, but none of that would happen if people weren't watching and people weren't supporting. And so we would do anything for you. We'll bend over backwards. A lot of times, to the chagrin of our audience, being like, oh, come on, you're listening to that group, or like, oh, come on, like, you seriously took that criticism that person said. Every criticism is valid, but when our patrons start to make sacrifices ahead of us without our control, that is where that gets frustrating. So, yeah, there are things that we can do. They're just more expensive. So, these are options we thought of way back before we even started with Patreon. There are definitely models out there of people who have their own payment services. That's something that I had to go through a couple times with the business that I run, currently running Easy Ally. So it's something that I'm familiar with doing, and it's something that I know people that could build systems, and we could just have that set up on our own, but we'd have to manage it. That takes time. It's not very fun to do, and it costs more money. We would be making less money which is weird. Like, yeah, we wouldn't be giving Patreon the cut, but it would be taking up more of our time, and I think the savings would be negligible, if any, at this point. But that all has to do with size. And so if we get to a point where our size can warrant it and is maybe kind of intimidating, to Patreon, or that puts us into issues that we did not foresee, then yeah, we definitely have Plan B options, but nothing I've ever seriously considered at the moment. You never know what the future may bring. Terrence Karen. Kinda sad you didn't acknowledge my comment. Not saying you should have read it entirely before my Patreon Discord question, Brandon, but thanks for the answer. So this was kind of out of context, but I wanted to bring it up because Terrence brought up something that hasn't really annoyed people before. There are adjustments that I make. When I read questions, that's not necessarily the exact comment. A lot of times I cut out, hey Jones. We get a lot of that at the beginning of questions where people are like, so I was kind of wondering, comma, and then the question, and I'll just grab that question. So when you hear me saying something, that is a direct question, that is a conversation starter that was submitted by a person. It's not necessarily their full comment. A lot of times at the end, it's like, so that's what I currently all we wanted to ask. Love the work you guys do. love and respect. So I'll cut that stuff out as well. But a lot of times on Cup of Jones, someone will ask a question, I will reply, and then that person will reply with a comment. Terrence Carson replied with a comment, or when he was asking the initial question, he put his opinion forward and then asked the question at the end of that, and all I answered was the question. And so Terrence wanted his comment to be included in the question. He wanted to say, here's what I think, now based on that, what do you think? Again, I saw somebody later, oh, actually, I don't know, did I copy that? I think I copy-pasted that whole thing, but somebody, I'm having an ongoing debate with Turbo Chicken Man about how much we really need to discuss the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise, but I have little to no reference points on it. But I mentioned that it helps if you put a question mark on things that identifies something as a question, because we do get lots of comments. I do get lots of comments from people where at the very end they'll say, oh, by the way, this is not, you don't need to mention this in the show. This is just me saying hi or saying thank you for something. So my recommendation, Terrence, and to other people would be, if there's a comment that you really, I will err on the side of trying to include as much as I can, or that I feel is necessary. But if you really want something included, maybe open with the question and then put that comment later. Because if I see a comment building up to a question, I'll be like, there's the question, that's the most important thing. Because again, I'm going to do a lot of talking too. So if I read a lot of things that you're saying and a lot of things that I'm saying, we're going to be here forever. But apologies for not referencing that one specifically. So always keep in mind as well, if you are a patron of Easy Allies, $1 or above, you can check out the question yourself. You can go back and see those comments. And I encourage you to, because a lot of people, I'd say when I answer stuff, it usually represents about 60 to 70% of the comments on every Cup of Jones. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. DRD 7 of 14. Hey Jones, would it be sneaky to change the rewards tiers to try to offset the Patreon changes? This is moot now because they have gone back on these changes, but this was an amusing suggestion. Few examples. So instead of charging $50, we would charge 49.99925 cents. $49.999.25, and so on and so forth. So basically we would charge less, and so you would be paying more, but it would equal up to the point where you were paying before. And a couple of people suggested that we can't do that. That's not currently the way Patreon works. We have to set hard numbers. We can't drop in, you know, cent decibels. It is an amusing suggestion, very creative, and I love the math that DRD did there, so if you want to check that out. He has a $20 example and a $1 example. Joey and Kate, if you don't have any examples of video game Christmas memories, then what about a cherished moment you've had with Amanda during Christmas? I don't know if it was one specific trip, but I've always enjoyed going down to Florida with Amanda and hanging out with her family. The thing that's nice about Florida, it doesn't rain here a lot in California. It's rained several times when I was there. I think it might have been the first time that happened, where they have, in Florida, they have something that they don't have here in Southern California a lot, which is screened in porches. So they have a lot of more bugs in Florida than they do here in Southern California. The weather's different. It's wetter, it's closer to the equator, and so they have screens set up on their back porches, so you're outside, you're enjoying the weather, you're enjoying, if there's a nice breeze, you can enjoy that. It feels like you're outside, but you don't have mosquitoes and lizards and things crawling all over. And so I remember the first time I went out on their back porch, our old cat, rest in peace, Albus, was there, and he would just like go up on a couch and just like stare out and look at the, you know, squirrels and birds and everything going by, because they live like right by a pond, and so the waters are going, there's ducks going by, and it rained really, really heavily, and whenever we get rains in California, they're like a flash. It's just 20 minutes, like, oh, that was fun, okay, I guess it's over, and we'll maybe get rain again in like 4 months. And there was a rainstorm that just kept going and going and going, and it was still kind of warm because it's Florida, and so it was neat just like having a beer and sitting on the back porch and just watching like the rain hit the water, and having the cat there and just chilling. It's nice to have a place. I'm glad that it sucks because Amanda doesn't get to spend as much time as I possibly can, because my parents live close and her parents live all the way on the other side of the country, but at the same time it's nice to have that place that we can go to, that it really feels like we're out. Sometimes I'll read a little bit of EO on Christmas break whenever I'm down there, but so it's not a specific cherished Christmas memory, but Whenever I think of, when you say Christmas in Amanda, I think of Florida, and I think of spending time down there. Toshigami, will you consider making a Rainy Day Ian and Ultima Brad merch for the upcoming E3 betting special, just to build up hype next year? So making a Rainy Day Ian shirt and a Rainy Day Ultima Brad shirt, you can pick your side. Is anyone on Ultima Brad's side? People would love to support their betting contenders to see who will be on top and who will decide the fate of Easy A and the lore. It would be a missed opportunity since Ultima Brad is pretty much popular among Easy A fans at this point. Really? All right. I'm sure the brand manager can smell the sweet, sweet money from far away. Okay, let me put that. I wrote one of the things down in the takeaway, but let me put that. Ian Brad. And just merch in general. Somebody mentioned, like, are we going to have a holiday shirt? The What's Good Game gals have a lovely holiday shirt. Excuse me. Didn't mute that one. And holiday shirts are sweet. We throw the idea out for anybody that wants to bite and create a design, and none of us had time, unfortunately. Again, merch, one of our Achilles heels. But we got time to do the Rainy Day Ian and the Ultima Brad merch of them like squaring off against each other. That's a great idea. It'd be fun to do merches. It'd be fun to do t-shirts from our betting special poses as well. We do like little poses for all the betting special things, and maybe it'd be fun to like throw that on a t-shirt. James McCoy, I know you had a lot of questions about merchandise lately, but is there any chance that there will be some new items up in the store in time for Christmas? You never know, James, but the chances are not likely. Austin Vincent, I think it's funny all the talk that you've had of musicals in the past episode, as I'm going to see Lion King on tour very soon. It's no full Broadway show, but it's still a big budget show. I mean, that's a heck of a show, especially the touring version. They definitely put a lot into it. I'm very excited to go see. Have you seen it? Any thoughts on it? Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship. Not love-hate, but I enjoy the Lion King musical, and I think it's got some issues as well. Visually, it's a very impressive show. It's a very fun show to see. It's got a ton of energy. It's one of those crowd pleasers. It's something that if you invest in going to see the Lion King, you will have a good time. When they brought the Beauty and the Beast to Broadway, they added a bunch of songs that I think were originally going to be written in the movie, which is unfortunate. Again, this is like one of those things that drives me crazy about the Dan Stevens movie is when Belle runs away and the Beast is all sad in the live-action Beauty and the Beast is like, oh wait, this sucks because she's gone, and he starts to sing, and I was like, oh, they're gonna have If I Can't Love Her from the Broadway musical, and I'm like, no, they wrote this weird other song that kind of sucks. So that was and there's a song called Home that was in the Broadway musical that would have been great to hear Emma Watson sing, but unfortunately it's not in the film either. But they did put in Human again, I think you hear that for a second. So there were songs that were conceived for the film but never made in the film, and then eventually were finished for the Broadway production. And all of those songs were really great. They're actually some of my favorite songs in just the Beauty and the Beast canon, you know, between the animated series and the Broadway show and now the live action. It's some of my favorite music that's been written for that. The Lion King, not so much. The Lion King had, there's one song where the ladies all talk about their fallen lion soldiers. Like, there's kind of like a lament for the fallen. That is a dynamite song. That's one of the best songs in the Broadway show. But then, like, they gave Zazu a song called The Morning Report. This was kind of like, ugh. And the Hyenas sing a song called Chow Down. That's not good. It's just not, like, when you hear Home in Beauty and the Beast, it's like, oh yeah, you needed a song here. Like when Belle first gets to the castle and it's like, well, this sucks. You know, like I'm stuck here in the castle. Like did I just made a really big mistake by like sending my dad home and now I'm stuck here? Like when Belle leaves, it's like, oh yeah, it's a perfect opportunity for a musical number. You know, it's like the Beast singing like, this sucks, I'm never gonna get a girl, you know, like I can't do it because I'm just too angry. I'm so far away from civilization that I just don't know how to be a human being anymore. And maybe I'm more beast now than man. And then the Lion King's like, clearly Zazu needs a song here. When he just kind of shows up and talks to Mufasa for 30 seconds, song. So yeah, the stage production of Lion King is an absolute spectacle, but some of those extra songs were a little weird. TLDR. Kiff. So, net neutrality. Are you worried? Yeah, whenever something scary happens with politics, something that's unsure, and keep in mind, I did have a lot of people, since I talked about net neutrality last, reach out to me being like, you know, don't get too angry because you never know. It's that question of whether businesses should handle something or whether the government should handle something. So both have an equal opportunity to screw it up. But I don't know. It's I think maybe the thing that concerns me the most is when you have something that people are opposed to and it just kind of passes through anyway. Are people listening? Is that something where, you know, we can find a middle ground despite what the rules actually are? I don't know. Or are people that consider that a victory, are they going to do some scary stuff? So it's not going to keep me up at night, but it is unfortunate. I await the next news with a bit of nervousness, I will be honest. Wesley, I love reading and I'm always looking for new authors to read. I try to find different genres and have favorites in each. For example, a fantasy recommendation for me, for you, would be Steven Erikson and his Malazan book of the Fallen series, which is a massive time investment, but honestly so worthwhile. For the crime genre, I would say Harlan Coben's books, starting with Deal Breaker, as that follows an amazing character. I do have a random genre, so things like Power of One or Kite Runner would fit there. Do you have any recommendations? I mentioned this, I don't know if I mentioned this on Cup of Jones, the last really good book that I read was The First 15 Lives of Harry August, which is science fiction and kind of about time travel, about multiple lives, and yeah, it's fascinating. Stephen King's probably my favorite author. I just like binged Stephen King when I was in junior high, when I was like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I can't remember what I started with, but I remember reading The Stand. I remember finishing The Stand and being like, wow, I voluntarily did that. It was so, like, I didn't like to read. I liked watching movies. I liked playing video games. And so actually, like, picking up a novel. I read the Harry Potter books before I met Amanda, were all the ones that were out. I think when I met Amanda, just books 1 through 4 were out. But it was almost like I did homework before I met Amanda. Because I literally like just finished Goblet of Fire and then met her weeks later. But yeah, sorry, those aren't really deep cuts. I'm trying to think. American Gods is my favorite Neil Gaiman book, if you've never read that. American Gods is really great. The show is good too, from what I hear. I'm waiting for it to be done before I dive into that. Because I don't need more things to watch. There's a lot of things to watch. But American Gods is an excellent book. There are things that Neil Gaiman has written where I'm like, that was whimsical and fun, but not my favorite of his, or I don't really get kind of the point of that story. But it's kind of like watching the Tim Burton movies. You're like, that was amusing. But American Gods is absolutely excellent. And I'm trying to think. I'm in a book club where we read nerdy books. And the next book that we're going to read is from the Golden Compass series, which has a book 4 now. Golden Compass, Subtle Knife, and the Amber Spyglass, I think is the 3rd one. Nice. And I guess there's lots of Hyperion series by Dan Simmons. Ready Player One is out. I mean, Ready Player One was fun, even though I find it kind of unbelievable. But maybe we'll get to talking about that after the movie. Maybe we'll do a spoiler mode. Turbo Chicken Man. It's still pretty shocking to hear how little contact you have with the Tony Hawk series. It shouldn't be, Turbo Chicken Man. You can't be shocked when someone hasn't played a game. Like, I know I'm a video game journalist. I know I've been doing this job for a long time. I know I've played a lot of games. I know I talk about stuff like SSX, so maybe it's shocking because of that. But it happens. People just don't play games. Aside from it being its pinnacle, 2 is in fact one of the highest rated games ever, in caps. Currently taking the #2 spot on Metacritic's all-time list, and often suggested by members of the group stream committee. I'd say that kind of glowing and enduring praise is deserving of you spending a little quality time with it, wouldn't you? I personally recommend the Dreamcast version, which has much smoother graphics than the PS1 version, though the choice is yours entirely. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, strongly recommended by Turbo Chicken Man. I think one of the things that turned me off from Tony Hawk was, with SSX, there's more of a general, like, wideness of accessibility. So it's a little more forgiving when I try to land a trick. You know, I don't necessarily have to be, he spins a little bit faster. And I think the thing that messed me up with Tony Hawk was you had to be absolutely parallel with the ground. So when you're spinning around, you can't land like at a 45-degree angle. Your board has to be straight on. And I just was never good at that. I would always fall on my face. And so Tony Hawk's one of those things that, yeah, it was it kind of seemed, it was like this seems bizarre because it seems like a very kind of free-flowing game that I could just like, I should just run around and do flips and get spell words and pick up little items and, you know, cruise around these different skate park environments. And really, like when I have SSX, when I play SSX, when I play that game, I should feel the same way, where I'm just like, this is just having fun. If I want to aspire to greatness and get a better score, I can do that, but I can still just kind of coast through this. And Tony Hawk was a little bit harder, and so that kind of freestyle fun that I was supposed to be having, I wasn't, because it was a greater challenge than I had anticipated. And so I think that's why I didn't put that much time into Tony Hawk, because I wasn't that good at it. And so I will go back and appreciate it later, but I can't promise that I will have any skills. I'm seeing Skate 4. Yeah, I got Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, several copies of that. I should just pop that in. No, I don't want Turbo Chicken Man yelling at me next week. Scott A. Ford. So yeah, no promises, but I will put that on the list of things that I need to stream. Scott A. Ford, I'm wondering if you have any advice for new streamers. I just recently started casually streaming games, as well as some creative art making streams. Awesome, it's cool that you do both. And I find myself getting a sort of stage fright partway through streaming. Since my audience is very small at this point, I find it difficult to maintain banter when at times my stream will drop to literally 0 viewers. So in those moments, I know that I'm not only talking to myself, but on the other hand, I don't want to have a silent stream because if someone new tunes in, I don't want them to be immediately bored. I realize that I'm just starting out and it takes time to build an audience and build confidence in my streaming presence, but I thought I'd ask anyways. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. First piece of advice, stop watching your numbers. Don't watch your numbers. Don't gauge the quality of your stream. I have no idea how many people are watching this right now. I have no idea how many people watch Cup of Jones. So if you think that I do a good job just with Cup of Jones with banter, right now I'm bantering with pieces of paper and kind of with chat, but I think the more you focus, I kind of regret sometimes when I'm on a stream, because it'll happen sometimes when I'm on a group stream, when the focus isn't necessarily on me, I'll just kind of like sneak a look and be like, oh, look at that. Like, especially around events, anytime we break 1,000, it's kind of nice to know. But at the same time, it always puts that little seed in the back of my head where I'm like, oh no, now I'm thinking about it. Now, if I check in 30 minutes later and it's less, does that mean the stream is not as good? Or does that mean we should do something out of desperation? That's the wonderful thing, the blessing. Thank you, all of you. That's the wonderful thing about Patreon and about the fact that we are financially supported via Patreon, and so don't have to stress about how many viewers we have on YouTube and how many viewers we currently get on Twitch. Obviously, it's a goal. It's something we should strive for. It is a marker of our progress in trying to make good content and content that more people want to see. But at the same time, you don't want that to identify what you're doing, how good of a streamer you are and how good your work is. So yeah, try to tune that stuff out. It's interesting that you say that you get a little bit of stage fright in the middle, because I get all my stage fright right at the top. That's why I always just try to meditate a little bit, take a breather before I actually start Cup of Jones. I always find myself getting really casual by this point. Like by the time I get to 10:45, by the time I get to the midway point in Cup of Jones, I've definitely got more comfortable, kind of gotten into a groove. And so, like I said, I don't know if that's because I'm just not really focused on making everybody happy, that I just see like, oh, there's Scott right there in chat, that I see tons of comments go by. And the other thing too, which sucks, the boring answer obviously, and you answered it for yourself, is it takes time. Streaming is something that, being on podcasts is something that I wasn't good at for a really long time. Streaming was something that I was not good at for a really long time. I wonder also too if I enjoy hearing myself talk. Part of why I jumped onto the bandwagon of doing voiceover for reviews is because I like to talk. I like to articulate things. I like to express opinions. I like to make opinions clearer and easier to understand, both in my writing and in the way that I speak. And so because that is a desire for me, I think there is a little bit of an ego there. I think there is a little bit of well, I think I said that well, or step aside and let me try to explain this. And that's kind of what Twitch is you're just being like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to play Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. What do you think of that? And so, don't feel bad. You never get the sense of like, you shouldn't be doing this. It's like, oh, you have 0 viewers, so, I guess you better stop. It's like, kind of always be a little full of yourself. A little bit. Always just kind of, trying to get into that mindset of like, this is fun, I'm having a good time. And one final piece of advice is maybe try practicing streaming when you're not streaming. Maybe try, don't have chat up, don't have any sort of simulation other than just the game that you're playing, and try talking about it while you're playing the game. It might be a fun exercise. It'll feel super weird and stupid, just like it does when I try to memorize lines or rehearse something when no one's around. You feel kind of dumb, but it helps. Practice makes perfect. Sarah Joint, can you guys do another Battle of the Bands, please? That is a video from GT I still go back and watch on a regular basis. We've talked about it. We talked about doing it recently. I can't remember what stream specifically it was, but it's come up. So I'm not putting it on the calendar right now. I'm not making promises, but Diamond Crusader Jones, what exactly are you thinking about right now? I'm thinking I'm a little sleepy, and I'm thinking that when would we do Battle of the Bands? Because the trick is we could put that up on YouTube. That would get that would be a licensing, a copyright nightmare. But maybe that's something we just do one night only, just once on Easy A. Be great to get Pam Horton back. Robert I. Back in the Game Trailers era after New Year's 2016, I believe you had 2 types of meetings. 1. More one-on-one meetings with future allies about their YouTube numbers and finding focus with their shows. Huber Hype, in particular, has been mentioned in the past. 2. The Dave and Buster's Last Hurrah. Last Hurrah in capital L, capital H. We should have just called it the Last Hurrah if we'd known. Which you guys were discussed the next year as a group. Hopefully that's accurate, but if not, feel free to clarify. Those are the only 2 meetings we ever had at Game Trailers now. But those are 2 specific, important meetings. But my curiosity, now that it doesn't matter because Defy is no longer breathing down your neck, can you reveal more insight into what you told the allies after improving view count, or how they could refocus their shows? Also, how did this corporate Jones compare to the Easy A Jones we all know and love now? Same Jones. What we talked about was Defy had a goal, had a limit that was 100K. They're like, if you do a show, in order for us to be funding a show, that show has to get 100,000 views, or you have to have a certain number of shows that are delivering that much. And so some shows were able to fly by because we're like, this doesn't take, like streams, like this doesn't take a lot of work, this doesn't take a lot of time to put together, and so it's not that big of a deal. It was really the, Final Bossman, Mandatory Update, Huber Hype, the big shows that people spent a lot of time doing. Reviews were fine because most of the time they would get 6 figures, and top 10s were great. Top 10s and Pop Fictions and Retros were like the most popular shows that we have. Those are the things that Defy really, really liked. And so it was just that question of, I knew it was going to break the hearts of our audience, and I knew it was going to break the hearts of the people that I worked with. And so was it important enough to say, morale be damned, we need to get views to really transform Game Trailers into something more akin to Smosh that makes the types of videos that are the most popular, that get the most clicks, that follow a specific formula to do journalism via ad revenue the way you're supposed to do it. And that was hard for us to do, especially because when we were purchased by Defy Media, we were purchased for a catalog. So it was weird to come in and do the catalog and then have people say, stop doing that, do something else. And we're like, I don't know if that'll be good because we've never done it. And I don't want to like imitate another channel or pretend to be something that we're not. So it was a lot of that, a lot of going back and forth about ways to improve that. Minimic, I don't know what the specifics of the GOG deal were, but they do have a lot of Falcom games, which I know Ben has enjoyed some of. If he were ever to decide to do a playthrough of one of those, that might be an opportunity to go back. Might that be an opportunity to go back to that? Possibly. I don't know if one ally's love of a certain type of game is enough for us to reignite a sponsorship opportunity with another group, but yeah, I don't think that was necessarily a sense of interest from us. It was more just kind of being smart about how much time we were putting into it versus what we were getting back. Minimic also says turn signals and blinkers. Why don't people use them? Turn signals and blinkers, to talk about traffic for just a second, is an interesting parallel to the current issue that we've talked about a little bit on Cup of Jones these last couple of months about communicating on the internet and having what you say be perceived in a way you did not intend. Because I think a lot of times in our society we assume people know what we're thinking. We assume, you know what I meant by that, and like they might really not. Like think of how many times you've been frustrated by a decision someone else has made or something someone else has said, and you're like, what are they thinking? Like what is going on through that person's head? And I think we need to think of that more often. Like we think we're confronted with that, and it's like, that's so bizarre, because most of the other time I know exactly what people are thinking, and I really think we don't. I think we have that perception, and I think that perception gets us in trouble a lot. Case in point, a lot of people are like, yeah, I was just going into your lane, you know it. And it's like, I really don't. I have no idea. If you're driving fast in the freeway, there's a lane on your left and a lane on your right. I don't know what lane you're going into. If you're in the left-hand lane and your turn signal isn't on, you might be confused. You might think you're going straight. You might think you're in the wrong lane. You might not have any idea what's going on right now. That might be a huge warning sign that, like, oh crap, I need to look at that person. And it's a lot of time, like a lot of times that'll happen when I'm going straight and there's a car that I think is gonna be going past me, and I'm turning left, and so I will go straight and stop, and the car behind me will honk like go, and I'm like, I'm waiting for this car to go straight, and that car will be like, oh, I'm turning left. And it's like, oh, well, okay, like, you're gonna turn left in front of me, which means I can go left because there's no car behind you, but you didn't have your turn signal on, so how the hell would I know? So, yeah, especially on the freeway, man, it's like, it's such a dangerous thing to do, just go bombing around the freeway without using your blinker. Just like A+ jerkism from the person that's in the carpool lane goes right over those lanes, that part of the lane where you're not supposed to, where you're supposed to be staying in the carpool lane. It's the point of the carpool lane when people are just like, all right, I'm done, and they'll just like take off through the carpool lane and no turn signal. That's the bet. It's like 2 in a row. But then watch Hoglaw is going to drop a comment to be like, actually, turn signals were determined to be, you know, extra credit in 2016 with the Who Cares About Turn Signals Act. Tim Beshin, you mentioned a few times that you're very salty about George R.R. Martin and the Song of Ice and Fire books. Why is that exactly? And who is your favorite book character? Book character? Maybe Peter Pan. But my favorite character from Game of Thrones is Barristan the Bold, Barristan Selmy. Good old Barristan. He's in my favorite scene in the entire book series. I don't know about salty. George R. R. Martin has definitely challenged my opinion of writing books in a lot of ways. He challenged my opinion of how to do a storyline over a fantasy book series. You know, I watched the first season of that show and I was like, huh? What? That didn't work out the way I wanted. And Amanda was like, oh, boo-hoo, fantasy fan. And it just kind of, I don't know, it put hair in my chest. I was like, okay, all right. Like, I'm used to stories being a little more fair than that, but okay, I'll stick with this. And it's been a fascinating ride. So I thank George for that, but George has also kind of reforged my understanding of a creator's attachment to their source material. And it's super weird to see me. I'm familiar with authors taking a long time to write stuff. I've been there before, where I've been reading a book series and you're just like, come on, like Patrick Rothfuss, come on, book 3 of the, you know, the Kingkiller series, let's wrap it up. But at the same time, Rothfuss does a lot of stuff. Rothfuss does a lot of streaming, actually, on Twitch. He plays a lot of games. Good guy. Met him twice. Will never remember that I met him, but good man. He will never remember that he met me. I will always remember when I met Pat Rothfuss. But what's so bizarre about Gurm is he just doesn't seem to care. Like from my perspective, from reading interviews with him and seeing what he's working on, finishing, what is it, book 6? Book 6, right? Just doesn't seem like he cares, you know? Just seems like meh. And it's just it's weird to see the amount of work he put in to realizing that world and how easy it was for him to completely bail on it and be like, I'm out. Like, to the point where it's like, yeah, I can't really tell what. I know he's involved in the show and I know he's making creative decisions. I don't know what those are. Doesn't really talk about him a lot. So I don't know how happy he is with stuff. It's gonna be weird if like they wrap up the HBO show and then he comes out after the fact and is like, well, I didn't like this, because if he releases the book after and you see those differences of like, oh, the show did that, but then he did that, that's gotta be a creative difference, right? That's gotta be an example of him being like, I didn't like that. I didn't want Arya to do that or Jaime to do that. And so it's just that distance. It's so weird. I'm trying to think of like a parallel. It's like if Damiani just stopped liking Nintendo. It's like if a Zelda game came out and we were like, do you want to review Breath of the Wild? And he was like, meh. We're like, what? Really? Because you seem like a really big Zelda fan. And he's just like, I'm working on this other thing that's kind of fun, and maybe I'll get around to it later. We're like, all right, like, I guess you're not a Zelda fan anymore. He's like, no, I'm a big Zelda fan. We're like, but you don't want to review Breath of the Wild? Like, just it's that kind of, it's weird. So it's not saltiness because I don't understand it. A lot of times I develop salt for things, situations that I'm pretty sure I've got all the answers there, or at least have enough information to drop an opinion on it. Where I don't know what's going on in Grim's head. To each his own. He has every right to not write any more of those books, which seems more likely as days go by. Logan Tawes, you were close with your second pronunciation of my last name in this episode. It's actually pronounced like pause or laws. Logan Tawes, T-A-W-S-E, Tawes, with the Z sound instead of an S. Thank you, Logan. For the question, I know you've mentioned how you developed a card game, but were you ever interested or attempted to get into working on video games? If so, any reason you chose to pursue game journalism as a career over game development? Game journalism tied right into my training, my education in college, which was video production, and so I spent a lot of time working with film, working with learning nonlinear editing, which was like the biggest skill that I developed in school. I learned on Media 100, and then managed to get a job that had Media 100, and previously had goofed around with Adobe Premiere a little bit. But that's the easiest answer to that, which I didn't go to school for development. I did not develop a desire to code. That was really interesting, going into game trailers and bringing on new people and having them know way more about PCs than I did, and realizing like, oh yeah, I missed out on that. I missed out on I was a Mac person, so I missed out on building a computer, learning DOS, like learning these command systems, and learning basically a lot of what makes computers tick, what makes OSs run, what makes a graphics card better than one versus the other. And so that's stuff that I've tried to pick up over time. But there are times, other than this card game, there are times when I've gotten interested, like helped people with projects and games, and there's definitely one time where I tried to learn coding. I tried to make a mobile game and built the assets and started to build the game, and then realized how damn hard that was going to be. It's kind of like Japanese. Like, I would love to learn Japanese. That would be really cool. It'd be very, very cool to speak Japanese and go over to Japan and talk to people and just kind of dive into that world. But man, that looks hard. So yeah, just very difficult. Nonlinear editing came very easy to me. The concept of moving icons around that have a sequence of sound and video that produces a video. I think I described that very well. It just kind of clicked with my brain. And the idea of putting a bunch of letters together to make something interactive is a brain teaser. Mikkel Hervel Nemo. Mikkel Hervel Nemo. This year I binged 6 seasons of Game of Thrones in a week. And played Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, and Peace Walker in a span of about 2 months. Have you ever binged a series of games, movies, TV shows similarly? For me, there's nothing better than devouring something that took many, many years to create, all in the span of a couple months. I binge all the time. That's why I'm scared to start a new show. And somebody's like, Jones, I think you're really gonna like the show. It's like, oh man, I just finished something and I'm so happy that I finished it. I think I'm kind of in that period now where there's nothing really that I want to watch. There's a couple things that I'm enjoying watching with Amanda, but I can wait on doing that until the two of us sit down and watch something. But finding something that you like and watching it that much is great, but at the same time, I have a very addictive personality, and so I can put stuff off and kind of get tied into that, spend a little bit too much time doing that. But yeah, man, I binge stuff all the time. I binged House of Cards recently. I had never watched that, and then watched it all up until this last season. I think I binged it up to a point, and then I think the next season came like 5 months later, and then I watched that. It's gonna be very interesting to see how they wrap that show up, given that Kevin Spacey is not around anymore. Only because it actually found itself, obviously he was still a part of the show in the end of the last season, but if the show found itself at a point where they could just kind of flick him away and focus on other people. It's just gonna be a question of how they do it exactly. But I'd previously watched The X-Files, but The X-Files I infamously binged, after game trailers shut down. I had a lot of packing to do and unpacking and purchasing of things and reorganizing of this garage. And so it was all on Netflix, I believe, and so I just like binged them on Netflix. I just recently binged all the James Bond movies. Those are all up on Amazon Prime. If you're a Prime member, you can get all of those. And so that was crazy, watching all of Bond again, and just kind of like jumping on Wikipedia and reading about the Bond series and getting it straight in my head, because I think I misunderstood like where the Lazenby, the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I thought that was very early in the Bond series, but it was not. Lazenby was supposed to replace Sean Connery, and then they were in this like weird transition period for a while where it was like Connery, Lazenby, Connery again, more, Connery somewhere else, more again. Yeah, man, that binging stuff is great. Oh, and I just binged Archer. I had never watched Archer before, and I have now coasted through 8 seasons. I had to get the last season. I had to buy it on Amazon, but seasons 1 through 7 are currently on Netflix. And Archer always looked funny and looked like something I might enjoy, but I never got into it and watched it all, and very much enjoyed it. Very, very funny show. I like my humor quick. I like jokes that are fast. I like comedies that have a good pace to it. And they don't sit on jokes a lot. I grew up being a big, big fan of Mike Myers, and I kind of got disenfranchised with Mike Myers just because he would be his comedy just got so slow. So that's why stuff like 40-Year-Old Virgin and movies, improv movies like that, the new Ghostbusters compared to the old Ghostbusters, I kind of get tuned out of stuff like that. Not because it's not funny or I don't enjoy the characters or the work. It's just they just kind of slow down. They just like, there's just some scenes where I'm like, okay. Benjamin Hull. So, what did you think of Star Wars Episode 8: The Last Jedi? We're gonna do a spoiler mode today. That will go up soon. I don't know who's gonna cut that actually. Oof, I'm probably gonna end up cutting that. I didn't really think about that because Ian's on vacation and Ian's not gonna be on it. Ian's upset that he can't be on the spoiler mode. So, you'll have to wait. Let's see. Did I like it? Did I not like it? I don't know. Alec Church. It was tough. I wanted to jump on Twitter and throw out a bunch of opinions, but I care very much about spoilers. I went into Episode 8 spoiler-free. I can't believe I did that. I used Twitter up until... I saw it Friday night, and I used Twitter up until Thursday. I didn't go on Twitter on Friday, but I think like Thursday afternoon was the last time I checked on Twitter. And thank you to all of the lovely people that I follow. If you find me on Twitter, at Trailer Jones, and you see the people I follow, those were all non-spoilery people. Or if they did spoiled, I missed it. Alec Church, what do you do to prevent losing your voice during an event with lots of speaking? Yeah, Alec was referring to our meet and greet where he says he's still lost his voice. I definitely started to lose my voice. Cheers, baby. Water. Water is very good. Drink lots of it. But yeah, there's not a lot you can do. Don't talk as much. A lot of times Amanda will bow out of something. Amanda actually could have gone to the meet and greet. She had plans, and the plans wrapped up with like, sort of enough time to hop in a car and drive down. But she was like, I don't want to scream a lot and lose my voice because she had some auditions the next day. Quasnarg. I hope you haven't been asked this before, and I'm sorry if you have, but have you ever thought about making Some Game News' video as part of EZA Proper? We've talked about Some Game News several times. Some Game News produces the best of Easy Allies, week by week, month by month, a wonderful collection of our best and worst moments. Thanks to Some Game News, I've seen a lot of things that I would not have seen before because I do not have time to watch all of the stuff that we produce. Yeah, we thought about making it part of EZA Proper. That would involve hiring Some Game News, and hiring people outside of the Allies is something that we have not done for any reason so far. So that while that is something that we thought about, it's not something that we're going to act on soon because there's still money to be spent as far as the original 9 Allies are concerned. Alexander Zirinov, I have a suggestion for selecting a game for the group stream. Pick 3 games from the group stream selection committee and add 1 game by yourself. It'll give us a clue about what you're currently interested in, which will help us to come up with better suggestions. Also, it'll guarantee that there always will be a normal game to vote if $1 patrons would not like crazy ideas of $2 patrons. Noted. Kyle is much more involved in the group stream selection committee process. I will pass this note along to him, and yeah, that sounds like a fun way that we can again, not make the selections so nutty. I don't know how nutty they have been recently. Apologies if that is an issue. Yeah, and always raise that stuff, because that is, we've talked about that. Again, we launched the group stream selection committee with a little bit of turmoil, and it is an evolving process, and so I think it's something that we could add suggestions like that and see how they go. Miguel Perez Ramos. I wonder why there is a lot of Easy Allies content that is not on the Patreon page. For instance, there are no reactions, no Hall of Greats. Why is that? I usually find the content you produce here because I want the early access, but you make me go to YouTube to find some of the stuff I really enjoy. It's tricky because you have to think about how things are displayed on the various sites as well. How archives are displayed on Twitch, how we have the 2 separate channels up on YouTube, and one of the reasons that we have the 2 separate channels up on YouTube is because when we first started out, we realized, well, we want to archive our streams that we do on Twitch, but that is flooding YouTube so fast with so much content that, like you said, stuff that you want to see is being knocked out of the way for people that want to find it in a specific spot. And so this might be a good idea for things that might be appropriate for the Patreon page that we don't currently do. Hall of Greats, I think, is a fun example, but the way Patreon displays things, it's interesting that you say, you're like, I go to Patreon because I want to get the early access on things, and I have to go elsewhere, otherwise I would miss it. At the same time, if we funnel everything through the Patreon, you would miss other stuff, because so much stuff would go flying through there that the stuff that we really want to focus on, reviews, the podcast, stuff that caters directly to goals that we set up on Patreon that are rewards for people who tune in to, who support us and tune in to watch that stuff. So I think that's why. I think our Patreon, first and foremost, should be indicative of the things that we are doing because of the money we are receiving on Patreon. And then if you want to see other stuff, fun stuff that we do, you can watch us on Twitch, or you can go, see our stuff elsewhere. But I will take that note. Brian Paddock, burgers or pizza? Probably burgers if I had the choice, but I love both. I also want to hear your thoughts, what your thoughts have been with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes of late. Shameless plug for my guild named Be Nice. Be Nice sounds like a nice guild. Be Nice. Apologies to a lot of people who have expressed interest in being in the Galaxy of Heroes Guild of Easy Allies. We have a cap at 50, and it just seems like we're always there every time I check. Galaxy of Heroes is great. They add all sorts of fun modes all the time. They have a mode now that's like a big war with another guild. They actually put us up against another guild, and then you pick areas that you want to put characters to set up for defense, meaning those are the parties that the enemy team will be attacking, and then you use different parties, a different set of characters, to attack the other team individually. So it's kind of fun to, kind of reminds me of Clash of Clans back in the day, like seeing what teams needed to be beaten and then picking the right teams from us to go over and fight them. Henry Emerson, every time I hear you say the word intern, my ears perk up a little bit. As someone who once dreamed of the day GT put out a call for another intern and an LA local, it's a hard thought to ignore. Considering the future, how do you feel you would go about that process? It's tricky because I've talked to a lot of people that are very against the concept of an unpaid internship. Especially in this day and age with a lot of people, millennials and the like, finding it very difficult to get a job to make enough to survive this the current economy we find ourselves in, that you should always get paid. They're like, if you're out of school and you have a job, you should not take a job for free. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that we're doing here at Easy Allies that we might not be getting, properly financially compensated for. And so working outside of the boundaries is a lot of times what is necessary to make, it's the same in video game development, to make a creative something possible. So I don't want to speak of a process that we're pretty far away from implementing. I think it would not be a traditional process in a sense of just like, okay, everybody throw in stuff and, we'll see who's the best person, because I have already been in communication with a lot of people that have sent in resumes, that a lot of people that I know are local, that I know are talented, that I know are great, that I would love to bring in to work on stuff. And that's not just editing, that's not just video production, that's community management, that's, social media, that's working on merch, working on all sorts of fun stuff. So I would definitely like to blow up our staff, but we're not there. Parasite Paladin, you have previously cut all of the allies' salary to send Ben to Japan, and you have done one-time goals drive for Box Peak and charity. When you get questions on doing things like this again, you usually bring up that maybe you do it for a camera. We all have different things that we would want. Ian definitely wants a camera, and Ian always wants more lights. Why not do that? But from other more outside the box things. For example, send somebody to take a course class on social media networking. That would be interesting. Yes, we're gonna be making that decision next month. We're definitely gonna be spending money soon. Keep in mind, one of the other things too is you bring up Japan, and then you say Box Peak, and you have charity. Keep in mind, there's all of our meet and greets. There's the 1-year anniversary. There's the 2-year anniversary that's coming up. There's the meetup that we just did at PSX. A lot of times we are spending money. We spend money on travel. If we're going to an event. I just went up to San Francisco last week to play Far Cry 5, and thankfully they actually paid for the travel to and from the airport. But if they didn't, that is something that I would expense because I'm directly doing it for EZA work. So there are lots of little things that we spend money on as well that are not necessarily a charge that we can count on every month, that are random events that pop up, that are things that we know are going to be happening months down the road. So social media networking is an interesting class. I wonder who would be willing to do that. Maybe if somebody loses a bet, we have to send them to gotta go back to class. Parasite Paladin, I have an idea for a stream. Please do consider this. I can only assume that a ton of members of the community have ideas for streams and shows. I bet that many of them know that they are mostly pipe dreams, but still would really like for you guys to hear their ideas. So I propose that once a year, you hear all of their ideas by doing this. Make a Patreon post or a post in the Easy Allies forums, since that would honestly be much easier, asking the community what their ideas are. Give us 1 month to write down our ideas for streams and shows. One idea per person to keep it simple. Then, at the deadline, all the allies get on stream and read out all of the ideas, saying what you think about the idea, if you like it, or how much you want it, any problems and hurdles with the ideas, etc. While I'm sure everybody knows to not expect any new shows from this, I think it'll make a lot of people happy, knowing that you guys at the very least heard and acknowledged their ideas. It's interesting, Paladin, that you said that new shows might not come from this. I don't know if other people would agree with you. I don't know if people had an idea that they felt very strongly about a show. I think a lot of people would just be like, you should do a show called the EZA Countdown, where you pick the top 10 of something that's cool. That's my show idea, you should do that. And we're all like, no. So yeah, I don't know if people would be okay with us being like, interesting show idea. We're not going to do that. I don't know if like shutting down most creative ideas would make for a stream that would make people happy. But we are, I think, moving toward doing something like that. I mentioned possibly doing a stream. One more question. I mentioned possibly doing a stream where we talk to our audience on Twitch and ask them to suggest things, not only new shows, but just across the board, things that they would like to see out of Easy Allies. Got a lot of interesting comments from people here on Cup of Jones, because our comments are here on Patreon, and along with our lovely live chat. And a lot of people said, no, don't do that. They're like, because the Twitch community is such a small part of the overall Easy Allies community. And so if we were to do something like that, like you said, it would be smart if we did it via our forums and Patreon, and then if we were to do some kind of Twitch stream component, it would be just reading that stuff off. But yeah, whether that's on one platform or all the platforms is, we definitely want to schedule something early in 2018 that is some kind of a Q&A component with our community based around things that they want to see, specifically from Easy Allies in the future. And that is a interesting layout for how that could possibly work. Lucas Riedler, or Riedler, after playing most of the major games this year, Persona, Zelda, Nier, Mario, I have to say my favorite game is one I just finished, a small indie game by the name of Finding Paradise, which was such a beautiful experience. It made me cry, which doesn't happen very often, certainly not with video games. Please have someone from the Allies play it. I think Ian especially would enjoy this, as it's only 5 hours long. I wonder what that's for. Probably PC, if I haven't heard of it. But Finding Paradise, there you go. Little recommendation from Lucas Riedler. Yeah, so we need some Ian and Brad merch. Go check out Finding Paradise. Obviously, there's more Q&A stuff that needs to happen, but hour 20, that's a pretty decent... finish the retro first, yeah, obviously. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that with editorial. I've discovered that I'm not the right person to cut a retro. I definitely want to work on more retros in the future, but I think when reviews, I cut a lot of reviews in the past, but a lot of times those are very time sensitive. Those are given to me at a moment where I'm like, okay, this doesn't necessarily fit into my schedule, but I definitely need to do it. So I'm just going to do a hard pause on whatever I'm working on right now and push it down the road. A lot of times that was Cup of Jones. A lot of times that was community comments. And where when I do a retro, it's been very difficult for me to hit that schedule. I know I originally wanted to get the Bloodborne episode up on Halloween, and here we are right at the end of 2017. And so the position that I am in, the responsibilities that I have, the fact that I live in the place where a lot of this stuff is shot, and so even if I'm not on Frame Trap, I'm still involved in Frame Trap. I'm involved in setting it up and taking it down and making sure cleaning up this place and just making sure things are okay here at HQ. And while that means that every now and then, like I said, I can pause what I'm working on to focus on a special feature or a review or something for a limited amount of time. If there is something that is expected of me week after week, it's always going to take a backseat to other things that I'm working on. And so apologies to people that were very much into the Souls Retro and want more episodes. Now that things are winding down a little bit, we're shooting 2 podcasts today, but that means we will not shoot a podcast next week. We are doing, like I said, Fiasconauts is already shot, and so there are some things that you can look forward to later in the month that I don't have to worry about shooting later in the month. And then hopefully that will open up some time that I can not only play some games that I need to play before we do our GOTY deliberations in January, but I can put some time into the retro and get that wrapped up. 1 episode, possibly 2, would be really, really nice to finish up 2017 and be like, here you go. Hand those off to Bloodworth, let him figure out when he wants to post those. And be like, there you go, wrapping up the wonderful Souls retrospective. I feel bad for Brad, too. Brad put in a lot of really great work on that, and did some great writing, and did some fun video capture. Very much looking forward to having played Bloodborne, going into that footage and seeing his playthrough, maybe discovering some things that I had not seen before, even on my playthroughs. Script is read, music's done. I just gotta actually get in and cut that sucker. So that is a lesson, something that I will take into 2018, that if we are going to be doing a retro that is multiple parts, I will hand that off to Don or Ian or bring in another editor and accept the fact that in the current state of Easy Allies, I should probably be focusing on other things because it's difficult to be a video editor and then be a manager and just kind of bounce back and forth between those things. So there you go. There's a small. Oh, let me just go over here and pick it up. Oh, hey, I'm Brandon Jones, the Trailer Jones. There's a little a wee bitty editorial. I hope all of you have had a wonderful Hanukkah. I believe Hanukkah is still going on. I think it was like the 6th night, maybe we're on the 7th night. We have, I mentioned I'm in a book club. We actually have a joint, Amanda is in a book club with some friends of hers. She's also in our nerd book club. And then every year we have the 2 book clubs combine and have a big Halloween holiday party. And we broke out 2 different menorahs and lit those. And of course we got the tree up. And so I'm just like ODing on sugar cookies this week. Just like, oh, Amanda made a bunch of huge plate of cookies. They're all very, very tasty. You saw some of them if you watched our group stream last week. Those are mostly gone. All of those sugar cookies that she made. And so, yeah, and obviously Kwanzaa and the like. There's lots of other holidays. Hey, at this point, with as crazy as 2017 was, just taking time off from work might seem like a holiday in and of itself. So I hope that all of you get a chance to do that. I hope all of you maybe we'll take just a little vacation from questions. Maybe next week, if we do Cup of Jones, maybe it's just a real light week. Maybe if you got that burning question, maybe save it 2018. Maybe we just be nice to just maybe crack it open. Just like, wow, 3 questions. Look at that. I can just do a Cup of Jones about whatever. But I'll see if I can cook up not like a special feature episode of Cup of Jones, but just something different because a lot of the allies will be on vacation, as hopefully a lot of you will as well. But one more Cup of Jones, one more opportunity to do a Cup of Jones on a Tuesday morning in the year 2017. It's been an absolutely crazy year, and I'm absolutely grateful because we are above 44K. We are still a healthy Patreon and a healthy YouTube channel, and all of that is because of the wonderful support that we get. This has been a rough year near the end. Been a little bit of scandal in the world and among Easy Allies, and some scandal on Patreon because of their pricing structure, and yet we have a lot of new fans coming in, we have a lot of people discovering us, and we have a lot of people that I'm sure have struggles with finances and have budgets that are difficult to balance, and still manage to support us month by month, that still manage to make decisions every now and then to up their pledges and to keep this crazy thing going. And we are always extremely grateful, and I get all sorts of warm and fuzzy feelings around the holidays when I realize that I am able to take time off, I'm able to hang out here in my garage and chat with all of you because of being supported financially on Patreon. It's a wonderful feeling. It's the best gift that you could ever give me. Hopefully I'll have time. I'm terrified of what the post office looks like today. I might run over and just kind of like go in one door and go out the other at the post office when we pick up stuff for a group stream tonight, because that line might just be, it might be too much. And it's 11:30 now. At 2:30 I gotta be back here to shoot a podcast and this Star Wars spoiler mode, and then do a group stream, and then another podcast, and then cut that podcast. We might do gifts later. So yeah, if you want to send us Christmas presents, always do that as early as you possibly can. But you're a Christmas present, all of you. I love you. Cheers.